How did you go about developing these vampire characters?
I kind of have parts of myself in all of them. uh, Vanya, his performance as Yuri, I mean, he brought it to a whole nother level. But there's that part of me that's just impulsive and very much about like just living in the moment, doing things you regret, not understanding why, you're perceived a certain way, all that sort of stuff. Um, Daria's character, again, deal with a lot of that, deal with, kind of my own like self-repression as well. So it's a lot like, in a way, there's so much of me in all the characters. And I think that's just essential. It's like there's a line that's told to every writer, and it's a dangerous one where they say, write what you know. And too oftentimes I find that makes writers kind of go with most obvious, like, well, I wait tables, so my character is going to be a waiter who wants to be a filmmaker. It's like, no, not necessarily that, but put what you know into your characters. Like, create something fantastical if you want, but put yourself into those characters, put people that you know into those characters, so that way when you're writing them, they feel authentic, they feel real. Especially for myself, like who needs to see another movie about some average white guy who wants to get the girl and, ends up succeeding in the end or not or whatever. It's like, that story's been told 100 times. I don't even want to watch a movie about my life. So in terms of that, like being able to find something interesting about the life I've had, about my own persona, and put that into my characters. And then, then from there, just have fun with it. Okay, here's my character. Now set them free. What are they going to do once they're out in the world? What's Yuri going to do when he's in an Uber ride share and some drunk people get in next to him and they're obnoxious? Me, I would be quiet and ignore them. His character, he's a beast and he's a vampire, so he kills them. Then he feels bad for the driver who's now stuck in the situation. And now how does he handle that? Well, and so just kind of, for me, it's like I like to create the characters, put them in a scenario and see where they go.
What are your thoughts on writing a protagonist that's a villain?
I mean, I really feel like any protagonist, if they're authentic, is also going to be a villain. Everybody's got that hide to them. And hopefully I'm not just projecting myself out there by saying that. But to me, it's not I don't even like the idea of having villains, having like protagonist, antagonists, because it's all about perspective. You flip the lens around and, the bad guy is actually, he's doing what he feels is the right thing to do. In his mind, he's justified. It's why, you go back in history, you look at Nazi propaganda films, they didn't shoot them intending Hitler to look like the villain. But us looking back at it now, it's very iconic villain imagery. You see it in the new Star Wars films. You see it in so many movies. They take that imagery and they flip it around. That was obviously not the intent of those films. And so any character, if you write a really fleshed out character, I mean, even on, the Nazi thing is a big scale. On a personal scale, we've all been in relationships. You had a fight with your significant other. You're right until a certain part of the argument where you're like, oh no, you just made a really good point. No, okay, I'm in the wrong on that. So even in that argument, like you went into it, you were the hero, and then you ended with like, oh no, I'm the villain. So that's how I approach my characters, is not thinking who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who's the one I'm rooting for. In the end, it's just, let's get to know them. Let's see who they are. And let the audience decide who they think is. Like one of my favorite things, and I don't want to spoil too much for those who haven't seen it, but one of my favorite things is Daria's character. She starts out, she's very much the damsel in distress type of trope. She's, the ex-girlfriend who escaped an abusive relationship. She's with this guy that we've all seen him be a monster. And then the story makes a turn. And you start realizing, she's not as helpless as I thought she was. How much of a victim is she really? And then you see that she's even reconciling that of who she wants to be versus who she is. And to me, that's so much more interesting than being, oh, she's good and he's bad. uh, I feel like that's where so many movies become so cookie cutter and so boring, is when it's so obvious who's who in the film. I want it to be, by the end of the film, you're still trying to figure out, wait, who was I supposed to be rooting for? Like, I'm happy how it ended, but why am I happy? They were terrible. Or, kind of wanting to know more. Like, if I feel like if a movie ends and you're trying to piece out in your mind where this character went and what they did, and you're still thinking about the decisions they made, then that's a successful film, because it makes you feel like that world was real and you cared about those characters. You found them interesting enough to contemplate.